Today is March 6th, 2023. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, a few things today. Some good news first. In the state of Wyoming, the state legislature just passed a new bill over the weekend that recognizes a baby's right to life and bans all abortions except for the life of the mother. Now, the state already had a pro-life bill that bans abortions, but this one goes even further. The previous one is being blocked by a judge, which seems to be the general rule for some of these pro-life laws that have not taken effect because some judge has blocked it. So the new bill would protect all babies, even those conceived by rape and incest. So this is a real, very, very strongly worded pro-life bill. And here's a statement from that bill. Quote, all members of the human race are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, the foremost of which is the right to life. Now, doesn't that sound familiar from our good buddy, Tom Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence? The governor, the pro-life governor, is expected to sign the bill. Actually, he's even said that he will do it. Also from Wyoming, the legislature passed a bill that would prohibit chemical abortions from being prescribed. This would make Wyoming the first state in the nation to ban these dangerous drugs. Well, this is exciting news coming from our western neighbor, the state of Wyoming. I talked last week about a bill in Utah that would ban almost all abortions. And it goes to the governor, and he's already said that he will sign it. So this is good news from Utah. Okay. After pressure from attorneys general from 20 Republican or red states, Walgreens announced last Thursday that it will not sell chemical abortion pills in those states. Wow, that is exciting news. A spokesperson from Students for Life said, quote, this response indicates that pro-life concerns are being heard and corporations are not rushing to take over the abortion business, but are proceeding cautiously, unquote. Well, that is extremely good news, but not to everybody. I saw on the Fox News website this morning that liberal film director Michael Moore from the Detroit area, I think he now lives in Traverse City. Michael Moore is calling for a nationwide boycott of Walgreens because the pharmacy, quote, stands with anti-abortion extremists against the rights of women, unquote. LifeNews.com also has a running list of incidents since 2022, acts of vandalism at pregnancy care centers, pro-life groups, churches, attacks on pro-life activists, ripping up pro-life signs, interrupting pro-life events, general harassment. And the list has 262 entries since 2022. Well, there's a new one that's going to join the list. Friday night, pro-abortion vandals damaged a pregnancy care center in Minneapolis by breaking several windows and spray painting messages on windows and on exterior walls. And one of the messages we've seen before, if abortions aren't safe, then neither are you. So, and I might add, as of now, March of 2023, only 2 people have been arrested or charged with vandalism in these countless incidences of vandalism at pro-life organizations or pregnancy care centers. It's just a travesty that the Justice Department is just dragging its feet on charging people with these crimes. That's just amazing. Okay, last item, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time here. I'm going to be reading more of this because I don't want to lose track on my notes. But I saw this morning that there's a lecturer at the University of Colorado in Denver, and he said that laws against homosexuality and abortions did not exist among Native American peoples. before the white man arrived. Because when the white man arrived, then everything became problematic and we caused all the trouble. Well, I don't know about the whole homosexual component. That's not my issue. I don't really have an opinion on that in that context. But I do have some thoughts about abortion. And perhaps this is a little bit of a history lesson. First, since the dawn of time, abortion has existed. Women have looked for methods to terminate or end unplanned or unwanted pregnancies. Typically, right now, you've got surgical abortions and chemical abortions. Well, surgical abortions really became common after 1880. If you were a doctor performing a surgical abortion before 1880, it was tantamount to murder, because the rate of women dying was huge. Unsterilized instruments, just poor information about medical or fetal development, just a lot of problems with surgical abortions before 1880. It's like murder. And women didn't do it. The main method of abortion was through potions, herbs, creams, but then you did have some women use knitting needles or sharp objects, very, very dangerous. But the preferred methods were potions or creams or herbal concoctions. But you got to trust me on this, though. The vast majority of women, whether you were living in China or India or in South or North America or in Western Europe, the vast majority of women did not terminate their pregnancies. They used infanticide. That was the most common method. And usually it was in the method of abandonment. A woman who didn't want that child, she would bring that baby to term, she would deliver that baby and abandon it, leave it in a field or whatever. But just and allow the baby to die by neglect out in the cold or the rain or whatever. But infanticide was the number one method of killing or ending the lives of unwanted babies prior to the 1850s, to like just before the American Civil War. It was the preferred method. And in pre-Columbian North and South America, I have to believe that infanticide was also the preferred method here in this continent. Kill unwanted babies after birth, not before. Okay, now the next point I want to bring up is the issue of knowledge, our expanding knowledge on human reproduction. Before you think abortion was a time-honored practice, you have to realize that medical science in AD 500 was not as good as it was in AD 1500. And medical knowledge in 1500 was not as good as it was in 1800. Every generation, every century, we gain more knowledge about the life sciences. And in the area of fetal reproduction, we get a better understanding of how the body works as we learn more. The main reason doctors began their anti-abortion crusade around 1860 here in the U.S. is because there had been a radical explosion of new knowledge, new information about human reproduction that had only been discovered in the previous 30 years. This was all new stuff to doctors. They wanted to implement this new knowledge into anti-abortion laws that were already in the books since about 1830 in several states. So these laws, these previous laws in our country, basically prohibited abortions after quickening. So the question is, what's quickening? Well, quickening is that moment of time when a woman first feels her baby kick, fetal movement. Now she knows for fact that she's actually pregnant. And the crazy thing is, here we are in 2023, the crazy thing is, up until the 1850s, 1860s, the law stated that you were not pregnant until you felt the baby kick. That was the legal proof of pregnancy. So quickening was that point in time. You felt the baby kick, you're pregnant. Laws banned abortions. But once that fetal quickening issue was debunked, not in the sense that doctors realized the babies existed long before quickening. So the quickening standard was discarded, and pro-life laws were enacted to prohibit abortions back to the moment of conception, to the very beginning, the onset of pregnancy. But women in general were not prosecuted in that quickening era before 1860. So once science and law determined that a woman was pregnant, then they banned the procedure and convicted people who performed it illegally. So I bring this up because medical knowledge was rather primitive among Native Americans. Did abortions exist among these tribes? Probably. But they probably practiced infanticide far more frequently, like every other group in the world. Did they know the facts of human reproduction? No, not very little. Back in Europe in 1500, a lot of doctors were ignorant too. But Western civilization, which was primarily an agrarian society, gradually became more urban, and great colleges and universities cropped up in many European cities between 1200 and 1500. Oxford, Cambridge, Paris, Heidelberg, Prague, Padua. Great discoveries, new scientific discoveries. In America, the Native American tribes remained agrarian, even nomadic. They did not establish great cities or colleges. Many of them had only spoken languages, not written alphabets, no books. Did Western Europe bring anti-abortion attitudes to America? In the sense that Catholic and Protestant missionaries preached Christianity, then yes. Those moral values were passed on to new converts. But like I said earlier, white settlers in America were as ignorant as other groups when it came to the knowledge of fetal development. And that did not change until just before the American Civil War. And hopefully this little history lesson helps a little bit to debunk that professor in Colorado. With that, I'll let you go, and I will see you next time.